Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of MedTalk, an initiative by MedEngage under the corporate social responsibility of Metropolis Healthcare. A very interesting career conversations that we have between generations of doctors with the wisdom and enthusiasm all put together in a meaningful conversation by the doctors, for the doctors, and with the doctors. It is my honor and pleasure to welcome Dr. Shabnam Singh ma'am to have us over here. Thank you so much, ma'am.
Thank you, Kirti, for the invitation.
So those of you, I know everybody knows madam, but I'm still going to introduce because it gives me a lot of pleasure. So madam is the principal advisor for healthcare at the Confederation of Indian Industry, as well as she's the governing board member and advisor for the healthcare sector skill development, which becomes very important as medicine unfolds into a new era, right? And then we have Dr. not yet a doctor, soon to be, final year MBBS, Hygrivis, who works at the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, AIIMS, New Delhi. So we have the next generation and me somewhere in the middle, and ma'am who has seen it all and is ready to give us some good advice as we go forward. Welcome, young doc, soon to be doc.
Thank you so much for the opportunity.
Ma'am, you know, when I look at your journey, I think I could not even stop going through. There was so much, and I said, it's best to hear it all from you. I mean, so many things have unfolded in medicine, and you've been there, you know, at the center of it all, worked with so many different policies, different programs, different areas, and you know, stood tall throughout it all. So share with us so that we can also learn a few things and maybe, you know, make you proud as we go ahead.
I like the way you've capsulized it. To be very honest, when I started, I graduated, finished my MD, I knew what I wanted to do, but I didn't know the how of it. So at our age, and this I'm talking about the late 70s, mid to late 70s, you were a clinician and you took care of patients. But something in me pushed me to look at something beyond the clinical world. And I think it has been very tumultuous. Huge learning experience, and I'm glad I made that shift. And it was driven by the fact that for me, the patient or the individual was my core. That time there was nothing known as patient centricity. You were a doctor, you took care of patients, period. As I saw patients move from pillar to post, seeing a doctor, getting tests, an ECG done somewhere, a lab test done somewhere, people requiring care at home, and there was no systemized way of taking care of. And that pushed me into a position that I wanted to put my arms around it, and I started one of the first at-home centers in early 80s. That experience sort of strengthened my resolve, and I got the opportunity to join company. I think I was one of the first few to join a company called Max Healthcare, and I have to say it was a 22-year journey of absolute delight. As a doctor, if somebody were to tell you strategize, think of how you want to build out hospitals, it was amazing. Having said that, my fundamentals were in Bihar, where I spent a lot of time after I graduated. And again, it was the interaction with people that showed me the absolute humongous void or gap between what you knew as a clinician was to be done for a patient and what you actually have the tools to do it. And fast forward to here and now. And here and now, when I look at the convergence that has taken place in healthcare, and the kind of actors who are involved in various pieces of medicine, it's an absolute delight. COVID was a horrible intervention, but it really brought to fore the need of the whole of society to lift healthcare like Noah's Ark. And that's what everybody did. And one was lucky to be here at CI at that time, because that was a time of acute oxygen shortage. We didn't have PPEs, we didn't have machines. It was amazing how diverse sets of people came together to be able to solve for a problem. I think if I were to look at my life's journeys, which, as I said, started out as a clinician, moved into being an entrepreneur, then moved into hospital administration. Right along this journey, the singular thing that we all thought we had an abundance of, which would never ever go away, and that was human capital. Actually, that was the Achilles heel, right? So the human capital was there, but a very large proportion of the human capital was not recognized, identified. Identified, yes. Recognized, no. And there was no systemized way. So doctors and nurses very well in their silos and buckets. The rest of them, none. But when we are moving into large organizations, for every one doctor, the ratios were 1:20, 20 people. So you had 18 who had no way of being checked out, right? And that kind of pushed me to be a founder member of the Health Sector Skill Council.
Right.
So there were people who were fantastic in what they did, the technicians, the GDAs. And I'll never forget the promoter telling me, he said, you can do whatever you want as far as a clinician is. Fantastic surgery, fantastic nursing. But if the car does not come to pick up the patient at the doorstep, he's going to give you a negative feedback. To bring to home the fact that there's this whole ecosystem, and that is something which was never taught in medical school. You were just patient focused. So again, as I said, fast forward to now. Look at the convergence. You have this new intervention, which is called this great digital world. Everybody is fearful. It's like the electric bulb. Huh? And this I'm just saying from what I've heard, that when the electric bulb came in the United States, they would put a disclaimer, don't be afraid of this. This is going to enlighten your life outside motel rooms. So this is exactly what's happening to digital. Everybody is scared. You don't know what's happening. But actually, it's not a tyrant in the room, right? It's certainly not a tyrant in the room. And this convergence of technology with interventions like what we're doing in genomics, personalized medicine, it's hugely exciting, hugely exciting. And it is this convergence, if it is put together, guided, will actually be the enabler for what we call Viksit Bharat. There is no other way that we can be able to have accessible, affordable care. And I'm being very, very cautious when I'm not speaking in terms of the cost of care. I'm parking that on one side because it's impossible anywhere in the world to put your hands around it. Ask me. I mean, we do this on a daily basis here. But at least with this enabler, that last mile connectivity, that last mile accessibility. And last but not least, we must also not forget that people today, thanks to this ubiquitous mobile phone that we all have, they do know they're hungry, but still scared. So they'll sit in front of a doctor, not knowing what they want to actually say, too scared, because they're not literate in health. And that's an area we definitely need to look at. How do we make our population, our citizenry, responsible, accountable for their own health? There's just no point in saying we've got this new magic wand in anti-obesity drugs without saying, oh, we haven't done anything about nutrition. We've got processed foods on one side. We've forgotten how our peers used to eat. You know, so it's a fabulous mixture, convergence. The core remains the empathy, the trust that people have in the doctor, which is it should be taken like that. It should be protected, right? But look at the entire ecosystem and take it along with you.
Lovely. Beautifully summarized, right? Only an expert can do that. I think the way, ma'am summarized this whole journey of healthcare from yesterday to today, and what we have a teaser of what it's going to be tomorrow, it's quite interesting. And how you and me doctors can play a role, not only as clinicians, but as she said very correctly, as to factor in the microenvironment and the microenvironment in which you and me practice, and how not only do we have tools or human capital or skill surrounding us to enable better patient care, but also now we have digital world supporting us. And we all know that if we have to scale something, we have to go digital. Otherwise, it is not possible to provide last mile support. So as a clinician, or even as an administrator or as a policy maker, anything that we can do which is going to make the system more and more strong and solid to ensure that the trust that the patients put in us is delivered every time, and every time rightly also, is very important. And at the right juncture, I would like to introduce a budding young doctor, right? And what do you think about this? How did you come to know about MedEngage, and how do you think this has helped you in this journey, something that, ma'am alluded to? How do you think you are now a participant in this journey with the right tools, with the right support? We all know how tough it is being a young doctor. It's a long incubation period, and I think any support at this time is very welcome. So how did you, by the way, he's a young MedEngage winner and had won a scholarship. So why wouldn't you share with everyone that how it was useful and how you can encourage more people to avail of such opportunities so that they also get a little boost in their journey?
Thank you for the question, ma'am. Well, the first moment that I came to know about MedEngage scholarship was when one of my seniors from my own college, AIMS Delhi, he introduced us that, see, they are giving you a scholarship and you can do literally anything that you would want that is going to help you with your career growth. For example, you could buy your academic books, for example. You could go and you could spend it on developing yourself, educating yourself on things that you would want to, be it medical education, be it anything other than medical education like financial literacy, or anything that is very important for a career growth of a person. So I took it to my heart, I applied, and fortunately I was selected not once but twice in 2 consecutive years, and I was very honored to receive the award and the cash assistance. From that, what I did was that I always thought that when, apart from being a medical student, concentrating on the clinical aspects of medicine, I also always yearned to be somewhat of a person who is going and getting into very interesting research as such. And one component of research that always, provocated me to do, I mean, it always wanted a very enriching experience to do in research is data analysis and how the biostatisticians used to do it, while people who collect the data have very little connect with what's happening with the data that they've collected. How is it coming out? What are the tests that they're using? How do you, very lot of technical aspects in that aspect. For example, like what kind of data, what do we have to do for a normal data distribution, what for not a normal data distribution. So for that purpose, I wanted to know more about it. And for me personally, it was the one thing that was stopping me from doing research end to end. I was fine with writing the introduction, methodology, and all those things, which you look at literature and you write, which you interpret your results. But finally, I was not able to do the analysis part, which stopped me from being a very independent, holistic researcher as an upcoming doctor and as an upcoming researcher. So I went to the internet, the learning place of all things. I saw a lot of videos about data analysis, took up courses, invested the scholarship into those kind of things. And it was very fruitful that I was able to expand my research capabilities, and I was able to do a couple of projects of my own just after learning. And by doing, you learn. And I was very much into that saying. And finally, now I am confident that I could do data analysis in terms of medical data, and I'm pretty confident that I could carry out research on my own given the question and the patience and the clinical resources available. So I'm forever indebted to MedEngage scholarship on that aspect.
It's so good to hear, when I hear people getting into research, actually that's also something, as ma'am would know, that all the good clinicians always do some research on the side, because that's how you think about, all guidelines, all the new, statements, consensus, everything changes by first piloting it on a small cohort against a use case analysis. You look at data, and we all know that apart from God, we should trust only data, right? So, and now data is the new, currency. So I think the whole concept of doing good research, meaningful research against a key clinical question, and only using data and not bias to come to a conclusion. I think that's very important, and encourage more students to take up these opportunities. We have now research grant in addition to scholarship, which has opened up, and that's a very important area which everyone must avail that research grant and do whatever it is that they can under the guidance of their immediate professors in their various universities. Ma'am, sometimes I wonder, everybody does the same MBBS, the same MD, the same MS. Then why is it that some doctors are more successful than the others? So I wanted to share some tricks of the trade, since you are a super successful doctor, both in the private and public sector. So what are the top soft skills that you would think that a doctor must acclimatize themselves to or learn along the way if they want to really, otherwise your knowledge stays with you sometimes. It doesn't really become impactful. What do you think?
So I don't know who said this, but it is 99% hard work and 1% luck.
Yeah.
Right? So you really have to go through the grind. But having said that, as neither in school nor in medical school for sure, were we ever exposed to the power of listening and the power of communication, right? And it just cannot be communication which is one way, like sage on the stage. You have to have the ability to be able to not only listen, but to process what you're listening and give the other person enough time to express themselves. We don't do that. And we, generally speaking, we dismiss it, especially in our country where the volume of patients is so high that you don't have that time. And I remember when we were in the early days and everybody used to laugh at us in Max, no, we would not open the OPD slots before 20 minutes because we felt the doctor should spend 15 to 20 minutes. That was unheard of. They said, you're crazy, this can't work. And really we did have to pare it down for sure because of the volume of patients. But that is extremely, extremely critical. The other thing is that if you don't treat the other person as your own, you will never get your story right. True. The prescription will remain a prescription. Patient will just understand 1/10 of it, will take the wrong medication. Not wrong, and the medication is not wrong, but would not have understood when and what to take. You get my point? So that, to me, is a very, very critical element of success. Listening, processing, and being soft and empathetic to people. That has to be your core. And now, as Hegras was saying, you have the internet there where everything and every patient is a Dr. Google by the time they come to you, right? So, unless you don't do it right, you are not going to get it right. It's very simple. The other thing is you have to be a constant learner. You have to be a lifelong learner. Today, every 3 months you have to learn a new skill.
True.
And every 11 months you have to get yourself recertified, whether you do it voluntarily or you do it to be able to be one up from the curve. Right? So if you don't have that drive in you and that ambition, then medicine is not the place for you.
True.
Teamwork, collaborative efforts, absolutely core. And if you want to succeed in life, be sure that whoever is your junior is smarter than you.
Absolutely.
So therefore, You have to leave your ego at home, or let it be a tiffin carrier that you don't carry along with you anywhere. So this is what I have learned in my life's journey, constant learning. And it's even more relevant today, where physicians have to be what we call physicianeers, physician engineers. You cannot survive. If it's a nurse, she better be a nurse engineer. This is what I said the other day. Because if you can't fix your equipment, there's no way you're going. I mean, example, I'll tell you what happened with oxygen also. If you know the gauge is up to 15, people just put it out there and the end result is well known to everybody. So this kind of understanding has to be there. Unfortunately, because of the pressure on time and the need, not only of the country, but even individuals, to graduate out. It's like saying you get into medical school, for sure you'll graduate, right? But will you be able to graduate with the right skill set to be able to go out into the world and be competent enough to face your patient, or competent enough to choose the stream? This is what I'm finding more and more now, people coming, ma'am, what should we do? Because it has exploded with a kind of different streams that you can get into in medicine.
Too many options.
Too many options. And you're still young, you still haven't savored it to be able to say, yes, this is my resting ground.
True.
So these are some things that you need to learn on the way.
Whole lot of attributes to pick up, young docs. So, from being collaborative, being a good listener, being a learner, and, picking up a new skill, a new certification every now and then, and always trying to stay ahead of the curve by sheer knowledge and, of course, a lot of cross-learning. So what are you doing about it? Are you all set like the way ma'am has described?
Thank you for the question again, ma'am. I am definitely not set at this point. I am on a constant learning curve, and I think that I will be on this constant learning curve lifelong. Firstly, what I'm doing towards what ma'am said is to get my research skills to the best of all possible. That is because I am interested in a pathway of physician researcher. So I feel like I need to have that kind of research skills that makes me talk on terms with people from various backgrounds. For example, if a person from a machine learning background comes and talks to me about utilizing clinical data to incentivize, to optimize a model, I should be able to talk to him in that perspective, in that language terms. When he talks about a lot of classifiers, it is of no use if I don't understand it, and yet being a physician researcher, I don't think that would do justice to what I am doing right now. So that is the point. I would definitely want to hone my research skills the best, learning from the best. That is one thing. Second thing, which is not a bit of medical, going towards the real life aspect to it, I would like to learn on a constant learning curve of financial literacy, because obviously we all earn money, and there is no point in making no use of the money that we earn and saving it up for the future. A lot of peers that I talk to about do say, how do you save money? I just have it in my bank account, the money increases, and that's how I save. While that is one way you can save, but at that point, as people say, you're not beating the inflation when it just stays the same. So you could use the money to create more money, and that is an important aspect that I think almost every person should be having, especially the medical community, because we stay inside very closed doors, inside the ward, inside the OPD, and that is our whole world to us. Patients going on different medical conditions and managing them. I don't think that is the only thing, although that is the main thing. Financial literacy should also be the core learning point. And the last one, as ma'am said, which is very important, the soft skills. Mainly comes into work when you've read everything and you go to the patient and the patient tells you something that puts you off and you don't know what to do at this point, and you're just telling that patient to get these tests done, that test done, while you're not being in the patient's shoes and understanding what the patient is capable of. So acquiring those soft skills is essential. Otherwise, I think that you will be in this medical field, a very familiar field, yet so unfamiliar one with your patients. So I think these three things on the top of my head is what I would definitely like to concentrate, to hone my skills and to look up to this exciting career pathway.
Very interesting. Research, financial literacy, and soft skill development. You've got on to the right metrics, so all the best with that. Ma'am, I was really interested, to know what are the policymakers thinking about the curriculum, because I think we can't leave it on any one person to decide, because if we have to institutionalize the new learning for the next generation doctor for tomorrow, I think the efforts will have to be made in the curriculum itself, so that, even you alluded to many parts during the session that this was never taught to us. So I think to put a handicapped person out of the field and expecting him to be God is a little unrealistic. So how about that, we enable the people who everybody looks on to and trusts and believes in a little better way by evolving the curriculum. What are your thoughts on that, and what do you suggest should be the way forward?
So there's no doubt that the curriculum needs to be relooked, right? The challenge is that whenever you look at something from a national perspective, whether it's a curriculum or whether it's bringing in a new act, whether it is establishment of a registry, the time taken to market is so long that in today's day and age, it does not speak to the point of starting. So point of arrival, the starting point has already changed. This is one of the biggest challenges, right? And HCI, that's our job to navigate this. I remember when we were all working to make sure that the 25 acres required for a medical college were pared down. It took us 8 years to get that done, right? It was relatively much easier to establish NABH rather than do this kind of work. Having said that, the curriculum definitely has to change, but it will take its own time. They have done a lot of tweaking to it. Ethics, soft skills, they find a place there. What I would suggest is that everybody start looking at micro-credentialing.
Yes.
So micro-credentials is the way forward, right? And when you bring in these micro-credentials, it will speak to what Hargavas's need is. You need management skills. I mean, I was doing management job for 22 years. I had no degree.
Same here.
Right?
In a
like you
management
too.
leadership role with no formal degree.
Then we established the Max Institute at ISB, right? And I was one of the founder program leads for that. So this micro-credentialing will come into being till we are able to even see the actualization of what finally comes out with this digital story, right? Hyderabad mentioned something very, very correct, that to scrub the data is more difficult, right, than actually getting it. But in our country, getting the data is a challenge. And why is that? Because you don't know what the end game of this data, the person who's putting it at the point of starting doesn't know what the end point is of this, So these are small things where you can start working into. But here the industry or the individual clinicians, they have to come up. Now, one should not get stuck in silos here. So if it is COVID, then everything will be fast forwarded for COVID learning, COVID teaching, etc. And then everybody sits back. No, this has to be a continuous process, right? And I think nursing does a great job of this, incidentally. They do a fantastic job of having these micro-credentialing things. And the other very, very important point is we don't have interprofessional learning. So you expect people to work together at the bedside of the patient in the OT, but when you're learning, you never put them together. And that's one of the first things that must be corrected. You must learn how to respect everybody in the value chain of care.
True.
The surgeon can do nothing without having the technician or the nurse. So why can't you learn together?
Lovely. So I think in the new curriculum for medicine, we should be looking forward to micro-credentialing, interprofessional learning, and just valuing everybody in the value chain and ensure that they're equally skilled and collaborative and put together as a team. And how that will shape up is going to be very interesting to see. I think we had a lovely conversation over here. You know, a young doctor from an Apex Institute, the All India Institute of Medical Sciences, a veteran doctor from the office itself, from Confederation of Indian Industry, setting the rules, deriving the policies, factoring in everything that goes into the ecosystem that we all are so much, as he said, we only have that world. Doctors only live in a very closed world. Our world starts and ends with the patient and everything that goes with the patient. On that note, thank you, ma'am, for joining us and taking out time from your very, very busy schedule. But thank you so much. Thank you, Hygravis.
Thank you ever so much for giving us this opportunity, and all the best to Metropolis for this fantastic endeavor.
Thank you so much for this opportunity, ma'am. I'm very pleasured.
All the best to you. Bye-bye, everyone.